Hello, my dear friends. Once more, those of you who have stuck with me so far, who are just finding this series for the first time here, reading from the Avataṃsaka Sūtra, the Flower Adornment Sūtra, the foundational text of the Hawaiian school in China, also called the Kegon school in Japan. Very influential, the Bodhisattva Pitaka has previously mentioned. And I have here, actually, I have to admit, I will skip a few of these question verse combinations, these packets, because they were mostly extolling the Buddha. And that is fine. That is fine. I will maybe do them last there, because there's no really continuity there. Maybe I'll do them last. But for now, for your enjoyment, I will skip a few of these. And continue from Mañjuśrī's question to foremost diligence bodhisattva. At this point, one may notice a kind of recurring theme here. It's always foremost something bodhisattva. This time it's foremost diligence. So again, I will read and then comment. We might actually do even two of these, because these are also quite mostly just examples or metaphors, but they're quite interesting or beautiful in some sense. So, at that time, Mañjuśrī Bodhisattva asked foremost diligence Bodhisattva, "Son of the Buddha, the teaching of the Buddha is singular. This being so, of the beings who are able to see him, why do they not all immediately sever the bonds of all their afflictions, and thus succeed in gaining emancipation? Given that there are no differences in their respective form aggregates, feeling aggregates, perception aggregates, karmic formative factor aggregates, consciousness aggregates, desire realms, formless realms, ignorance, and desires, how is it that the Buddha's teachings may benefit some beings and yet have no benefit for others?" At that time, foremost diligence Bodhisattva responded with verses, saying, "Son of the Buddha, please listen attentively, and I shall reply in accordance with what is true. Some achieve liberation swiftly, whereas others have difficulty achieving emancipation. If one wishes to rid oneself of the evil of countless transgressions, one should become courageous and ever vigorous in the Dharma of the Buddha. Just as a merely feeble flame will be quickly extinguished by wet firewood, in the Dharma taught by the Buddha, so too it is with those who are indolent. Just as when one uses a drill in attempting to start a fire, but repeatedly rests before flames emerge, so that the fire's strength therefore disappears, so too it is with those who are indolent. Just as when someone holding a sunlight-capturing gem fails to use tinder to catch its radiance, the fire then can never be started, so too it is with those who are indolent. Just as when, in the dazzling illumination of sunlight, a young child might then shut his eyes, and then ask with astonishment, "Why can't I see?" so too it is with those who are indolent. It is just as if some person with neither hands nor feet wished to use arrows made of reeds, to break open the earth by everywhere shooting them into it, so too it is with those who are indolent. It is as if one were to attempt with the tip of a hair to scoop up all the great ocean's waters, thus wishing to cause it to dry up, so too it is with those who are indolent. It is as if, once the kalpa-ending fires had already arisen, one wished with only a little water to put them all out. In the Dharma taught by the Buddha, so too it is with those who are indolent. It is as if, when gazing into space, one were to sit up straight, remaining unmoving, and then claim he thereby soars up and travels through it, so too it is with those who are indolent. So, Mañjuśrī's question. Son of the Buddha, the teaching of the Buddha is singular. This being so, why don't all immediately sever afflictions when they see the Buddha? We could also say maybe when they hear the Dharma, although this is actually taken up as a question in a latter packet, in a latter part. Given that there are no differences in the respective aggregates, so he mentions form, feeling, perception, karmic formative factor, and consciousness. He mentions desire realms, form realms, formless realms, ignorance, and desires. Of course, this does not mean that there is no difference in how the aggregates manifest, or no, what manifests in the aggregates. Of course, ultimately there are no aggregates. This is the same as with the sense bases, as discussed previously. They are fictional. There are no sense bases, there are no aggregates as such. They have to be distinguished from reality for them to be there, for them to be perceived there. And here I can say maybe something about this, the aggregates, in very brief. Form is phenomena, the form aggregate. Feeling aggregates, evaluation. The term Vedana, I think, would be almost better translated as evaluation. That's, like the feeling tone, feeling something to be good or bad or neutral. Perception aggregate, sanya, or in the Sanskrit, sanya, is the kind of the faculty of recognizing in form, in phenomena, which what Dharma Bhikshu here calls karmic formative factors are distinguishable or recognizable in form. So the karmic formative factor aggregates, these are sankharas, or in Sanskrit, samskaras. I would think it's better to call these, as many authors do, fabrications or concoctions. Sometimes I call them ideas. These are the kind of, the conceptualizations we have. Sanya, or perception, is the faculty of recognizing these in the flow of phenomena, in form. And then consciousness aggregate, the fact, we could say, that things are experiential in nature. It's kind of like awareness, although it's not really there. If you can't find awareness. This is actually a good point. I talked about this with a student today, actually. You can't find awareness. Where is awareness? It is kind of fictional too. It's fictional in the sense, I don't mean it's not existent. Again, just words. But what are we talking about really when we talk about awareness? Good question, I think. Desire realms, form realms, formless realms. Now these two, the point is not that these are the same, that the appearance of them is the same. It's the same as the aggregates. What Mañjuśrī here is saying, given that there are no differences in all of these things between beings, he means that their essential nature is the same. So there's phenomena, there's perception, there's conceptualization, there's consciousness, there's evaluation. It's the same. Desire realms, form realms, formless realms. Again, the essential nature is the same, not their appearance. Ignorance and desires. Again, of course, not all beings have the exact same desires, but beings have desire. So yeah, how is it that if beings have these kind of, in their essential nature, the same kind of faculties, we could say, and kind of, dispositions, how is it that the Buddha's teaching may benefit some beings and yet have no benefit for others? And, foremost diligence Bodhisattva's answer is quite simple in a sense. I find the metaphors pleasant, but the answer is quite simple. Son of the Buddha, please listen attentively, and I shall reply in accordance with what is true. Of course, in the wider perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, and even in the context of this book, true is it's not to be taken literally. Obviously not. It's just kind of true here means kind of what is wholesome or in accordance with Dharma. Some achieve liberation swiftly, whereas others have difficulty achieving emancipation. Yeah, it's different for beings, different beings. If one wishes to rid oneself of the evil of countless transgressions, one should become courageous and ever vigorous in the Dharma of the Buddha. So this is the thing. It's not a conscious decision ultimately, but if one has the karma for it, and here everything is dictated again by karma. We don't have, nothing comes from in that sense. It's an irony, because happiness comes in a sense from within, from the spiritual growth, psychological growth, opening up, and faith in life, and love, and compassion, and the manifestation of these, and a sense of great acceptance. All of it comes from within. It's internal change that is relevant, and looking outside for it is always a mistake, in a sense. Or one can look outside and love the outside, but the love comes from within, and it's unlocked by looking within, of course. But ironically enough, nothing comes from within, in a sense. Because here all of that is given to us. A disposition to look within does not arise solely from within. It arises from the totality of everything. Both in the present case, there's something that triggers it. Some experience. It doesn't have to be an experience of the outside, but an experience of the inside, which then links to cause and condition of such a myriad kind of variety. Eventually kind of linking to everything in reality. It all comes from the outside in that sense. It's all grace. It's all grace. And this is the beauty of it also. All of that internal growth is ultimately a gift of grace. It doesn't have to be a gift of grace from a God or a personal God. Of course, there are many different ways of seeing or perceiving God or the absolute, like Tao in Chinese philosophy. It's not a personal God. But whether or not one, believes in a God or has faith in that or finds it beautiful to cultivate that kind of view, it's all a gift of grace. In that sense, no one deserves anything, praise or blame. But this doesn't mean that we wouldn't praise or sometimes even blame, perhaps. With blame, I'm not sure. But praise is invigorating, and praise is a part of that grace, of giving that grace, being the vehicle of that grace for others. So of course there's a place for things like praise and love and so on. But it's all interdependent. It's all ultimately just the totality moving about and kind of rustling, doing its thing. A beautiful thing. And in that sense also, one should become courageous and ever vigorous. But it's not, it's an irony in the sense, that not everyone can just like that do it. It requires cause and conditions. In that sense, also when we look at others, this is a great kind of important thing sometimes, to accept that we cannot overcome the karma of others, the conditioning of others. It's sometimes too strong. If there's an opening, then we should be vehicles of grace. But we cannot force anyone, we cannot rescue anyone in that sense. It's too much about the within. We can help, we can aid, if it's welcomed. And sometimes we can do great things. I am completely in agreement with foremost stillness for the Bodhisattva here, I have to say. One should become courageous, for sure, courageous, courage, that kind of warriorship, very central, and ever vigorous, vigor, virya, or virya, depending on the language, very important. Not to be lax, to do stuff, to help, to develop, so that one can help. But sometimes one has to accept that the karma of the other is too strong. The resistance is too strong. One cannot act as the vehicle, and that is in some sense, it's fine. It's part of it. But here, of course, the appearance of courage and vigor should arise. And how that feels to us, selfing beings, is that we attempt and intend to be courageous and vigorous, and we strive to cultivate these things, and we can cultivate these things. This is the relative truth. If, in some sense, it's not really absolute truth, just to say that, that ultimately it's all just about karma. And this is not, I don't mean karma in a magical sense. It doesn't have to be like that. It's just however samsara works. Ultimately, we're kind of, at the mercy of the totality. But that's the kind of closer to the absolute truth, though it's not the absolute truth, which is purely experiential. But we should, in the relative truth, how it feels like is that we strive, we do things. We cannot be lax in that sense. That would not be the answer. So do not take me to propagate that. That's not proper surrender. We strive and we wage the war for goodness and love. Not an angry war. Our tools are not swords or weapons or hatred or aversion of any kind. Our tools are love and compassion. Our tools are, our tools are love and compassion and acceptance and harmony and faith. Not a faith in God, doesn't have to be with faith in life. And our modus operandi is to be the vehicles of grace. Okay, that was a bit of a talk of its own. My apologies, I kind of digressed. But many of these are kind of just, it's there's space for that here. So, foremost diligence Bodhisattva then continues with a list of similes or metaphors. Just as a merely feeble flame will be quickly extinguished by wet firewood, in the Dharma taught by the Buddha, so too it is with those who are indolent. So merely feeble flame, if the flame of Dharma, flame of vigor, flame of kind of, if your practice, for example, is just starting out, like, if you just read a little bit of Dharma and you have a little bit of a spark, but you don't cultivate it, you don't do bhavana, cultivation, then it will be quickly extinguished by wet firewood. When you get into trouble, when you get into difficulty, when you get into something bad happens, your faith, your love and your faith and your cultivation, it will shatter, it will be extinguished. So that you should cultivate the flame. When you get the flame, and if you're watching this, you probably have the flame, most likely, unless you're just like a random person who just bumped into this from the recommendations bar. But anyhow, even then, maybe you got the flame already. I don't know. But if you have the flame, you probably have the flame. Cultivate it, diligently. It's not just about meditation practice. It's about bhavana. It's about cultivation, and it's a very general thing. In the original Pali Canon, there is no word for just meditation really. Jhana, in Sanskrit, dhyana, it's kind of, it might be so, but it's used, for particular states of meditation, particular meditative practices. There's no word for meditation in general. You have anapanasati, for example, mindfulness of in and out breathing. You have the satipatthana practices. You have the jhana practice. You have the brahmaviharas. You have different things, different kinds of practices, but no word for meditation. The closest we have is bhavana, which is cultivation. And that's the general thing. One should cultivate not just in the sitting posture. It should eventually take over your whole life, as it has done for many, many, many people. It's a great thing. It's a blessing. That's true grace. That's really, 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 really nice. That's really good. So cultivate it. Also off the cushion. If you, whatever practice you have, try to apply them intuitively. Really cultivate that flame, but don't overdo it. It's difficult because if you overdo it, don't do it out of a sense of duty. Try to find pleasure and love and acceptance there. Try to find like a spark of pleasure there, enjoyment, interest. Cultivate your interest in this. That's a great part of the flame. Not just vigor, but interest, genuine interest. And do it from a place of love for yourself at the very least. Not from a place of just duty. Then you would, if you do it from a place of duty, you are more likely to overdo it and burn out. And then the flame is again extinguished, not by wet firewood, but by trampling. Too much of a hassle around it. Too much stress. It gets trampled. Okay, going on. The second simile. Just as when one uses a drill in attempting to start a fire, but repeatedly rests before flames emerge, so that the fire's strength therefore disappears, so too it is with those who are indolent. Of course, indolent, indolence. Maybe we all already know what it means, but it's kind of being lax, not paying attention to what you should do, not being diligent, not doing your work. So yeah, just as when you use a drill in attempting to start a fire, the drill is probably close to kind of like how you have, my other hand is holding the book, but you have like you have your hands and you have a stick, and then you can you do that kind of thing. You can see maybe in the movies or something. I can't do that stuff, but starting fire like that. So when one uses a drill in attempting to start a fire, but repeatedly rests before flames emerge, so that the fire's strength therefore disappears, so too it is with those who are indolent. So repeatedly rests before flames emerge, so that the fire's strength therefore disappears. If you, in your practice, you take, you practice for a while and then you stop, and then you practice again and you stop, your interest kind of waxes and wanes towards Dharma and practice. There is a chance, it's not that scary, it doesn't happen every time, but there's a chance that your fire will disappear. It doesn't grow strong enough because you're taking too many breaks. Just you're resting too much from it. You're not paying enough diligence. It's not consistent enough. And it's again bhavana, not just your meditation practice. It's also your study, your reflection, how you apply it to your life. All of this, like if your interest waxes and wanes, there's a chance the fire might disappear. At some point, the fire will never disappear. My fire would never disappear. I can say that with almost complete certainty. And I know many people, many students included, for sure. And some of you are watching this, I probably know some of you guys, and many of yours flames would never disappear. But still, when you're starting out, it can. So next one. Just as when someone holding a sunlight capturing gem fails to use tinder to catch its radiance, the fire then can never be started. So too it is with those who are indolent. Okay, this is a bit of an interesting, weird one. I'm not sure if it's kind of, just because of our time. A sunlight capturing gem sounds kind of like a mirror. I'm not sure if this refers to a mythical object or to a kind of, or like a glass. If this is like kind of like a magnifying glass. Sunlight capturing gem. It sounds like a magnifying glass. Fails to use tinder to catch its radiance. Of course. Well, yeah, tinder. It makes sense. Tinder is those kind of like very small sticks here. It refers to those. So the ones, the small sticks you put at the kind of the bottom of the fire before you put like larger sticks and then eventually logs on top if you make like a teepee fire, for example. So just when someone holding a sunlight capturing gem, just as when someone holding a mirror fails to kind of fails to use tinder. There's no tinder there. You're lacking the tinder to catch the radiance. The fire then can never be started. So too it is with those who are indolent. So what is the tinder here? What is the tinder? The tinder, I would say, is your chanda, which means your motivation, your drive, I would say. It's maybe the closest. The initial impulse, the drive, the kind of the core of your the tinder. It's the core of your fire. Also, it makes sense. It's the core of your fire. Whatever fire you have, the tinder is at the very core. And it's the one that starts everything. It's the intention. It's the original impulse. It starts the fire. when it catches the sunlight. So you hear the Dharma. I think this is it. Yeah, this is the simile. You hear the Dharma and you study it and you practice a little bit initially. That's the sunlight, and you use a mirror to concentrate it on your tinder. And if you don't have Tinder, you might have heard an online, like a email notification just now. I hadn't, sorry, didn't close it. Sorry. So if you have a mirror there. Now what's the mirror? Yeah, the mirror is probably the vehicle through which you hear the Dharma. The sunlight is the Dharma. The mirror is the vehicle through which you hear it. You have it, it might be a person, it might be a book or something. There's at least one way to interpret this. And then if you don't have the karma, again, unfortunately, if you don't have the karma, we don't have the conditioning to have that impulse, to get interested in it, to kind of, if you the chanda, the motivation, the drive, the wholesome desire. This is a concept also in Theravada, which is quite world rejecting. Chanda, wholesome desire. If you don't have that kind of that root there, that conditioning, the fire will never start. So you need that initial impulse, and I don't think you can do much for that. I mean, so too it is with those who are indolent, maybe indolent in a past life, but I would be quite merciful here. The tinder is difficult to achieve if it's not there. The drive to be a better person, a seeker, a seeking drive, something that resonates with the sunlight, catches fire. Yeah, but it's a beautiful metaphor, I think. It's really, this is my favorite so far, I have to say. Sunlight of the Dharma, shown through a vehicle, a person, a book, a talk, an insight. And hitting the tinder, if it is there, if it has been placed there by the world, by grace, to catch the sunlight and make up a beautiful, glorious fire of practice, cultivation, motivation, faith, beauty, and so on. Okay, going on. This is I thought this would be very short, and now I'm waxing poetic all the time. It's fun. Let's go. Just as when in the dazzling illumination of sunlight a young child might then shut his eyes and then ask with astonishment, "Why can't I see?" so too it is with those who are indolent. Just as when in the dazzling illumination of sunlight, this is again, the sunlight is the Dharma. It's basically, at least, not in the time of this, when this was written, I'm sure, but now, we could say, the Dharma is everywhere. Maybe this means the dazzling illumination of sunlight, tathata, suchness, not the truth, but like the Dharma in this sense. Liberation, awakening, all of it is there. It's always there. It's just there. It's the moon is always there, that one could see it. It's always present. And we could also say, yeah, I mean, now as Dharma is present everywhere, everyone has access to it, and so on. Just as when in the dazzling illumination of sunlight, a young child might then shut his eyes. You don't take it in, you kind of like, it's not so that you don't maybe have the tinder, but you don't have the maybe I said mirror before, but you don't have the magnifying glass. That's what I meant also previously, not a mirror, a magnifying glass. And then like you're lacking that, you don't have you don't meet the proper vehicle perhaps, or you don't accept it. You don't hold the vehicle. You don't kind of you don't listen to the vehicle. You shut your eyes. You block the light. And then you suffer, and you ask with astonishment, "Why can't I see? Why do I still suffer? Why do things suck? Where is liberation? Like, I want liberation." And the vehicles are there. There are myriad. And the insight, the moon, the liberation, truth, all of that kind of liberation, it's there. It's so close. Like it said in Tibetan text especially, emphasized. It's so close. So close that it's too close sometimes. for one to see it. Why can't I see with shut eyes? So too it is with those who are indolent. Again, it's quite a brutal way to go about it, that's indolence, because again it's kind of, it's just a tragedy of it's a tragedy, in the kind of karma. Some do not accept it at all, even if it's present, and then they still suffer, and they would want to be free. It's not just Buddha Dharma, it's spiritual growth in general. Some people just don't do anything about it. I know people like this. They don't accept help, they don't seek help, they don't seek growth. Even if they suffer, they don't look within. Or they look outside maybe. Many of us, for money, for power, for pleasure, external pleasure. These are the only refuges. Even though for thousands of years we've told, I say we because I count myself in this group, we who propagate and advocate for this kind of internal growth, we have humanity also in a general sense. We have for thousands of years, maybe ever since we were born as humans, we have repeatedly found that only the internal can be a solid refuge. Anyway, moving on. It is just as if some person with neither hands nor feet wished to use arrows made of reeds to break open the earth by everywhere shooting them into it. So too it is with those who are indolent. I think this is a comical one. A person with neither hands nor feet, so already unable to fire a bow, wished to use arrows made of reeds, which are brittle. Reeds are not one would use wood, not reeds. Reeds are very brittle. To break open the earth by everywhere shooting them into it. So even if he had made the arrows out of wood and metal, and even if he had hands and feet, trying to break open the earth by shooting arrows into it is a completely futile quest. So this, of course, there's something this emphasizes futility to a great degree. Arrows made of reeds don't work, and it doesn't even have hands or feet. So it's completely futile. So I think this refers to what I just talked about, looking at the external and trying to be liberated through it. Trying to find refuge in riches, in money, in power, in pleasure, in worldly success, in the 8 worldly dharmas: pleasure, gain, fame, and praise. Trying to find refuge in the 4 positive worldly winds. They are worldly. I mean, this world is fine. It's nirvana if you look at it. But these things are not proper refuges. These are not liberative. These are prisons. These imprison one because they are insecure. And they are prone to ever-growing craving and clinging. They are not solid and stable refuges, and it's futile to try to find happiness and security through them. This is very clear. This is absolutely clear to me. It's so much better to look at it to find it or look for it in spiritual growth and in dharma in a wide sense, in a general sense, in the teaching, whether it's Christian or Judaist or whatever, or Buddhist or universalist, as I like to think of myself quite often. Sometimes I'm really just I'm a Mahayanist, and sometimes I'm a universalist, and it's fine, just words, But looking, it's like this futility. It's completely futile. We could maybe think, what part of this futility is shooting the arrows into the earth? What part of it is making the arrows out of reeds? What part of it is being without hands or feet? But just for the sake of brevity, I will move on. Maybe sometime, if someone is interested, you can ask me, analyze these more closely. Anyhow, let's go on. There's still 3 of these. It is as if one were to attempt with the tip of a hair to scoop up all the great ocean's waters, thus wishing to cause it to dry up. So too it is with those who are indolent. I think this too refers to the worldly winds, in a sense, because it's kind of like, like one gets some pleasure from the worldly things. Like, with a tip of a hair, one gets some momentary satisfaction. I mean, sometimes it's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with worldly pleasures. As the great Christian Trappist monk Thomas Merton said in his wonderful book, No Man is an Island, that in the eyes of God, and let's take this liberally, we don't have to believe in a God, but still, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful concept. In the eyes of God, all pleasure is good. He says, all pleasure comes from God. It's just the being ensnared by it that is evil. So clinging is evil for Merton. No, clinging is sinful. Pleasure is not sinful. Even for a Christian monk like Thomas Merton, all praise to him. He was a great guy by all kind of accounts. But yeah, I mean, it's not that we kind of scoop up the water of the ocean. We it's not that we bathe in pleasure and so on. No, it does provide momentary relief, and it's not just about the relief, it's about the beauty of it. It's fine, like sex and traveling and good food and good company, that's all fine and dandy. It's all good. Like that's all good. It's the clinging that's a problem. And if one attempts to, I think this metaphor actually, it's the great ocean is suffering. It's okay, we don't want to bathe in that ocean. Forgive me. I previously kind of, in that sense, misused the metaphor. I think the ocean here is the ocean of suffering. And if one wishes to dry it up with these kind of momentary kind of pleasures, with the tip of a hair, and wishing to cause it to dry up to achieve liberation from suffering, one will never succeed. So too it is with those who are indolent. They kind of it's again futile. It's futile. It doesn't work. Okay, going on. It is as if once the kalpa-ending fires had already arisen, like when the universe is being destroyed by the kalpa-ending conflagration. If it is as if once the kalpa-ending fires had already arisen, one wished with only a little water to put them all out. In the Dharma taught by the Buddha, so too it is with those who are indolent. So yeah, the kalpa-ending conflagration is raging. It's already arisen. And then one wishes with only a little water to put them all out. Okay, what does this mean? Again, the futility. Maybe that this is actually the same. Tip of a hair trying to dry up the ocean of suffering, with just a little water trying to kind of extinguish the conflagration of suffering. I think this is the thing. Yeah, they're the same thing. That's just different elements, just kind of different angle from a different element to provide more clarity. But it's this, in this sense, I think the meaning is the same. So we can go on to the last one. I like this one. It is as if when gazing into space, one were to sit up straight, remaining unmoving, and then claim he thereby soars up and travels through it. So too it is with those who are indolent. So here, there's not futility. Futility is not the point. Delusion is the point, or ignorance, but also laxity. Just plain indolence in this sense, not being diligent. I think this is the thing. When it is as if when gazing into space, I think this means that one actually learns about the Dharma quite extensively, even. And then kind of sits up straight, remaining unmoving. One is there kind of maybe satisfied in some sense by learning of the Dharma in an intellectual way, or that I am somehow doing the cultivation, but when one is not practicing, I think this is how we should maybe understand this. One has learned of the Dharma, and one is gazing into the Dharma, and starts, oh yeah, this stuff is cool, This stuff is both trippy and really cool. And it sounds kind of right. And one just sits there, and then one thinks that this is soaring up and traveling through it. This is kind of enough somehow. Like, oh yeah, and like, there's kind of like some delusion there, and then claim he thereby soars up and travels through it. This is actually also a warning, I think, in the sense that a teacher who has never practiced, who does not have first-hand experience, has gazed upon the stars, has learned of the Dharma intellectually, and then claims he has thereby soared up and traveled through it, actually tasted it. So too it is with those who are indolent. So we have indolent teachers, I'm sure. Like at least historically we have had, and I'm sure nowadays we also have. And this is yeah. I mean, it's always a question how to recognize if someone has first-hand experience. It's difficult, and that's also one reason why teachers don't make such big claims often. Sometimes making claims is good. But one should then really be certain that one knows what one's talking about. I mean, it's not so dangerous to kind of know sometimes, like it's not that, like if someone has intellectually read about the Dharma and then talks about it to friends or something, like that's just good. Talking about Dharma is good. But being a teacher, for example, or claiming that you really know your stuff, that you've experienced this, deeply, and that you understand it deeply when you actually don't understand it. That is a kind of indolence. Anyway, that's it for these. It was actually, I thought I would actually do 2 of these verse parts today, but it actually ended up being the longest one so far. So I hope you enjoyed the poetic parts. I hope you enjoyed it. We had many of kind of like Dharma Talk elements, digressions. But the similes were in that sense. I think they did their job. They stimulated quite a lot of Dharmic thinking. So I hope you enjoyed, and be it a good day or a good night to you, or whether you're already asleep by now, listening to this, I bid you adieu, and I bid you a good day, good night, happiness, blessings, and the kind of the grace, what I talked about, the grace of this beautiful world, Be happy.